Chapter 5 Dark Twists of North Inamorta. Atreus had been in the same raft for a day now, and the ocean saw no end. He didn't know what to expect, or where they were even sailing, and no one had the interest to tell him anything. They, Arrowkai and the four Juggernauts, just kept staring into the distance. Atreus had no idea why they were even in here. Why not just return to the shoreline, especially after they'd been rowing for this whole time? Whatever was awaiting them was surely withheld from him. Marrowkai especially had been an interesting figure. He had been standing on top of their raft for the entire trip, staring into the night's darkness. Only sources of light, which were there was moon and the fog around the sea. This thick fog created ghostly and phantom shine around the whole crew, and it felt truly unnerving and worrying. Only sounds around them were just soft wind and the water splashes. Having to row in this quiet and calm but ominous sea, while everyone else kept acting like they had a secret not to tell, stressed the young prince. He didn't know where to go, what to do, or why he should even care. It took multiple more miles from them to row, when it finally felt like their trip was producing results. The fog in that direction where they were going began to fade, and warm wind started to welcome the raft. A silhouette of large and monstrous fortress started to appear in front of the raft, and the night was finally showing signs of dawn. Atreus realized that this had to be the Gargoyle's Keep, the hideout of all chaos in Inamorta. The same castle, which years ago was thought to be the final test of strength, was only a catalyst for the true final battle yet to come. No one knew when or where it would take place, but since the discovery of the new powers and magical abilities of the Elemental Empire, it was going to be something beyond imagination, only a few years before the present time. Inside the giant fort was a big open hall of emptiness and darkness filled by some snake statues and venom wells. Atreus barely remembered anything from that time when Gargo was defeated. Queen Medusa didn't spark any hate within the young prince. It was all about bittersweetness and success, something suppressed by the chaos magic. Everyone else, Juggernauts and Marrowkai, were simply marching through the keep's entrance without a single expression. It felt like they were awaiting something and could not shift their focus away from it. After a while, Marrowkai led them into a staircase for basement. It was a small room for maintenance of the most important relics of the Chaos Empire. The staircase brought to a door which was decorated by steel snakes and big desaturated spiral-shaped iron carvings. In that door were no holes for a key or any sort of handle. Marrowkai opened this huge ball by hitting the tip of his sight between two rock tiles. Suddenly, red glow appeared to the spirals and the snake's eyes. Then the door opened. It was a short, beautifully decorated and tall hallway. Both sides of it had stands in them which were dedicated to some sort of a relic. The final relic, which stood at the end of the hall, was surprisingly the head of Queen Medusa herself. The head's expression and the condition of her head had changed through time. Her eyes began to fade away, and her head looked otherwise withered and exhausted. Her skin color started to get lighter, and the snakes in her head looked like ants had eaten them. Her crown also had seen its better days. It was dirty, darkened, and some parts of it had been chipped away. Her royal dress was placed at a pedestal under her head, and compared to the rotten head, the dress still looked like it was in perfect condition. Atreus could not understand why that ugly and obnoxious pile of rotten, dead flesh was held between the most important relics and artifacts of the Empire. His wonders made their way to his vocal cords, and Atreus asked out loud, What that monstrosity does here? Isn't she dead? Why is she held here? Marocai glanced at Atreus distantly, but soon his jaw formed an angry, despicable gesture. He struck to the ground with his scythe, causing paralyzing effects inside him. Marocai then said to Atreus with vivid frustration and hate, "We will revive her. The Queen of Chaos is the strongest being I can ever imagine. Her power saved me, and even more." Kai's words echoed in Atreus' ears, and his vision began to fade away. When Marocai claimed that Medusa's powers made him stronger, Atreus' vision suddenly warped. Marocai's scythe twisted into the form of a spear. His skin came back to and the golden colors of Adikai's armor did as well. Marocai's huge mantle suddenly appeared to his left arm, and it turned smoothly into an all-familiar shield of Prince Adikai. Atreus, taken completely off guard by this chain of illusions put together to tell him something that was not taking it easy. Was it true that the Dark Lord of the Dead, disfigured and frightening, cold and calculative overlord of chaos, was indeed Prince Adikai all of this time? How deep had he fallen when he dared to monger fear, pain and suffering to the people he could someday lead as their noble? Marocai had waited for some time for his former kind to realize his former identity. Atreus soon gained his control back and started to question some goals and views over the world Kai had. "What do you mean, even more? You are revived, brother. However, are you sure this is the path you wish to take? You are a devoured and flimsy being of a skeleton. Adikai, you are a prodigy at strength and skill. Why do you wish to turn away from that?" Marocai, slightly amused by Atreus' saying, and in honesty, he thought that Atreus was wrong. He was quick to prove a point about his philosophy. "Look at me. Do you see anyone else here having my prowess of magic? I became the master of necromancy, immune to the continuity of time. I became the overlord of darkness and its powers. Queen Medusa chose me as her true follower. Who needs Prince Adikai when the world has me?" Suddenly, Marocai let go of his scythe and aimed his hands towards the left. There was a small light blue colored object with violet rocks. The light blue parts of the stones started to shine bright, and they sent a laser beam towards Kai's hands. This beam shot a ball of vampiric power at Kai's disposal. Then Marocai shot this energy bubble inside his grip. Soon, the power held inside moved into his corpse, and his eyes shifted their glow from bright red to dark violet. Marocai looked like he was enjoying it. embracing the power flowing through his undead skeleton. He did the same to a relic on his right side. The artifact was in the shape of a disc, and it had a giant snake carved into the surface. The disc itself was more green as decay and mold. It was a lot more refined in form compared to the vampiric stone. Marokai took a praying position, stood there for a couple of seconds, and suddenly a wave of magic was casted from Marokai's corpse. This wave hit Atreus and the Dragonites inside the room. Tell Adikai to perform that, Marokai boasted to subordinates. Much to everyone's surprise, even to Marokai's own, his heart was beating again for a time which felt like an eternity. Also, his veins, designed to move blood, were partially back. They were all connected to his heart, but the amount of those veins was not enough for a natural living stick figure. Also, those veins were glowing turquoise light reminiscent of the colors of the vampiric artifact. Atreus also felt a change within himself. His mask suddenly felt more open, and his eyes were no longer covered by a filter. He also felt like something had just flowed through him. His spear, which already slightly modified by his turn, was now leaking green and thick liquid. His cape, all of its imperfections and dirt, was now wiped gone. It was now dark purple silk with multiple tail-like spikes on its end. The Dragonites also saw some changes on their outlook. Marokai looked around and admired his own work and results. It was all thanks to Queen Medusa, who Marokai deemed as the realm's strongest and most capable sorceress and creature. Atreus wished to ask some more details, but he was so focused on wondering his new outlook and abilities. Those questions were soon forgotten. Where these new features had arrived, what they meant for his being, or was Atreus even able to use them? They felt way more relevant questions right now, even when Atreus' mind was puzzled by Marokai's odd hatred and at the same time almost blind loyalty to Queen Medusa. Meanwhile, having the gathering being a success, the Order Empire could return to its original plan. Xyphos and his officers had already gotten close to the initial meeting point and ready to finally perform the possible final push to wash Inamorta from the diabolical and threatening Chaos Empire. Despite the dramatic and emotionally distressing days leading up to this day, Xyphos and his officers were confident as ever. Despite the strategic defeat, they managed to get back on their feet and struck their foes away from the south. It was all thanks to their high morale and belief for victory and for the better tomorrow. The Order Empire had always known that it was what it was fighting for. They had faith in their laws, families, even their own weapons. Every time order was tested or challenged, everyone knew, one way or another, that it was for a cause. Same could not be said for the Chaos Empire. After their constant defeats and failures after Medusa's decapitation, they had little to no idea of what they were fighting for. They had no lands, loved ones, or a religion to protect. Everything was or had to be about bitterness and revenge, something which never truly fulfilled anyone. Marokai especially. When he was resurrected as Dead Kai, he was an emotionally troubled and confused youngling who under Queen Medusa slowly rotted his humanity away. Through time everything that was left of a walking embodiment of hate and spite. He doesn't know what he wants, aside from pain and fear around his foes, who only exist in Kai's own head. But wasn't Atreus with them? Echoed in the conversation of the officers. Xyphos tried to stand up for his little brother's defense and claimed that the situation might be more complex than just Atreus having lost his sense. But there was little to no evidence to back the case up. Despite the troubling discussions, when they finally arrived at the cutting point of North and South Inamorta, would the most experienced commanders and fighters arrive to assist many newcomers and recruits for the final operation of the Empire. With the taste of victory in their mouths, they kept going with their escort rep riders at 11 a.m. They had reached their destination that was the camp under shade, Thira and Kaicho.